Good morning. Amanda, are you there?
So I'm gonna take a pause.
No.
No, what page?
340.
340, yeah. Verse 61.
All right, halfway through.
I think we're more than halfway, actually. Sue and I figured this out because a lot of the back end is like appendix, and so I think it only goes to page like 600.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, somewhere around 600. So yeah, we're more than halfway down.
This has been fun. I like that we're reading these books. Okay, so the perineum, pressing the perineum vagina with the heel and contracting the rectum so that the Apanavaya moves upward is Mulabanda. By contracting the perineum, the downward moving Apanavaya is forced to go upwards. Yogis call this Mulabanda. Press the heel firmly against the rectum and contract forcefully and repeatedly so that the vital energy rises. When the muscles of the perineum are contracted, the whole pelvic floor is pulled up. In the text, we are told to press the perineal vaginal region or yoni and contract the rectum. The word gudam indicated rectum, but it also means anus, bowels, or lower intestine. However, it should be clearly understood that in Mulabanda, there should be absolutely no anal contraction. The contraction of the anus is known as Ashwini Mudra. Ashwini Mudra indicates the movement of a horse and makes with its rectum during evacuation of the bowels. In the Garan Samhita, it is said to contract and relax the aperture again and again. This is called Ashwini Mudra. When Mulabanda is initially practiced, there is a tendency to contract the two areas, i.e. the perineum and the anus. Mulabanda takes place in the center of the body, neither in the front nor back. The Muladhara chakra is directly contacted. Controlled systematic contraction of the perineal body, cervix, produces heat. I did not mean to do that. In the subtle, oh, is that you?
I did that.
Okay, let me, I'll do mine so I can keep reading.
Oh, okay. I didn't know if you had yours on.
That's okay. Oops. Nope, I want to leave the meeting. Can you see?
Yeah. I can see it.
Yep.
Chakra is directly contacted. Control systematic contraction of the perineal body. Cervix produces heat in the subtle body, and this awakens the potential of Kundalini. Mulabanda, sit in any comfortable meditative pose, but preferably Siddhasana, Siddha, Yoni Asana, as they contact Muladhara chakra. Keep the hands on the knees in either Jnana or Chin Mudra and close the eyes. Make sure the body is completely relaxed and the spine is erect. For men, the area just inside the perineum has to be contracted, so it is best to concentrate on this area for a few minutes first. Women should concentrate on the cervix, as it is the cervix and vaginal muscles which have to be contracted. After a few minutes of concentration, start to gradually contract and release the muscles of the perineum cervix. Contraction will last for a few seconds. Keep the breath normal. Contract and release up to 20 times. Prepare yourself As for the previous practice, contract the muscle of the perineum, cervix, and hold. Continue to breathe normally and do not hold the breath. Hold the contraction for as long as possible, then release. Practice up to 20 times. Contraction should start off gently and only partially. Contract just a little and hold without releasing, then contract a little more. Continue like this, gradually increasing the tension and contraction 10 times until full contraction is reached. Hold the full contraction for as long as possible and try to breathe normally. Mulabanda with breath retention. Practice Mulabanda in conjunction with Jalandhara Bandha and internal or external retention. Sitting erect, inhale deeply through the nose, hold the breath and perform Jalandhara Bandha. Now practice stage 3. Before exhaling, release Mulabanda and then Jalandhara. When the head is straight, exhale slowly. The same sequence can be done with external retention. Technique 3, Mulabanda with Uddiyana Bandha. With external Kumbhaka and Jalandhara Bandha, so that's holding the breath, and then the throat lock. Practice 5 rounds of techniques 1, stage 2. Then practice 5 rounds of technique 1, stage 3. Now add Uddiyana Bandha to the practice. Do 5 rounds of stage 2, then 5 rounds of stage 3. It takes months of practice to become fully acquainted with Mulabanda and years to perfect it. The greatest difficulty is overcoming the tendency to contract all the muscles of the urinary excretory complex. It takes a lot of practice before one can isolate the different muscles in this area and control them so that the movement only takes place in the area associated with Muladhara chakra. Mulabanda is meant to be, and in combination with pranayama practices, Kumbhaka, Jalandhara, and Uddiyana Bandhas. It can also be used in certain asana practices. Mulabanda should be performed with Jalandhara Bandha during Antar, internal Kumbhaka, and with Uddiyana Bandha and Jalandhara during Bahir, external Kumbhaka. However, it should be perfected as an individual practice before it is incorporated into other techniques. There is no doubt that by practicing Mulabanda, Prana Apana, and Nada Bindu are united and total perfection attained. Okay. The union of prana and apana has been discussed previously, but what are Bindu and Nada? Bindu is an important aspect of Tantra and Yoga. Bindu means point or nucleus and refers to the nucleus in each individual, which contains the potential consciousness and creative force. What is the potential within the nucleus? It can be compared to the DNA molecule, which contains the potential of creating an entire universe in the form of a new being. Bindu has a different form of manifestation in each of the 3 realms, physical, subtle, and causal. In Hatha Yoga, Bindu often refers to sperm, ova, in the physical body, but they're understood to be the grossest manifestations. Oh, move your arm, baby. There you go. Oh, here, tuck it under. Sorry, guys, one second. Roll this way. There we go. Grossest manifestation of the subtle Bindu, which drips as nectar from the Bindu Visarga, the point in the top back portion of the head. From this point, the Bindu moves down through the chakras until it materially manifests as the cellular components within the reproductive secretions. According to Tantra, Bindu can be experienced and controlled from these 2 points, i.e. Bindu Visarga and the reproductive organs. In its aspect as semen, it is called white or Shuka Bindu. In its aspect as ova, it is known as red or Rakta Bindu. The union of the 2 is Mishra Bindu, and that union produces nada or sound vibration. The Chaudamani Upanishad states that Bindu is of 2 types, white and red. The white is Shukla and the red is Maharaja. The white Bindu represents the male aspect Shiva, Purusha or consciousness, and semen. The red Bindu represents the female aspect Shakti, Prakriti or energy, and menses. The red Bindu is established in the sun, and the whole white Bindu in the moon. Their union is difficult indeed. The terms white and red should not only be taken literally, they are also symbolic. White Bindu resides in the head, red Bindu in Muladhara. He who realizes the essential oneness of the 2 Bindus when red Bindu merges with the white Bindu alone knows yoga, or union. That's the Chaudamani Upanishad. In terms of the male and female bodies, the red Bindu in the Muladhara of a man is Shukla Bindu, and the red Bindu in the Muladhara of a woman is Rakta. In the practice of the Vajroli Mudra during Matuna, The aim is to unite the two bindus so that the nada, subtle sound vibration created, returns to its source in the mahabindu seated within the brain. It is not the physical bindu, i.e. sperm or ova, which is to be taken up into the brain. This is often misinterpreted. It is the subtle essence from the union of these two poles of energy. It is the energy of the reproductive impulse, which has to be channelized through the central nervous system through Sushumna. Two important bandhas are to be perfected, Mula and Jalantara. When Mula Bandha is performed in conjunction with Jalantara, the Sushumna passage between Muladhara and Vishuddhi is isolated. Jalantara Bandha prevents Pranavayu from passing upwards beyond Vishuddhi. Mula Bandha prevents the Apana from escaping downward below Muladhara. These two vayus are forced together and their union is Manipura is greatly accomplished. This awakening of Manipura chakra is a definite milestone in the spiritual life of a yogic aspirant. With this, Kundalini is considered to have risen from Muladhara and become established in Manipura, and this affects the source of the brain where the nectar flows from Bindu Visarga. In physiological terms, this flow of nectar is associated with the release of hormones from the pituitary gland into the bloodstream. The principle of feedback inhibition of hormones upon their source is well known to scientists. It means that the hormonal end products, such as testosterone in the male, or estrogen progesterone in the female, is produced by the testes or ovaries due to the stimulus of gonadotropins from the pituitary, as well as their primary. Do you want the other side? Okay. As well as their primary effects upon the reproductive system. These reproductive hormones are also found to feed back upon the pituitary to inhibit further release of the same pituitary hormones which have stimulated their production. In this way, hormonal effects are created and are exerted in the body in a fits and starts manner with the. One second. Cut it out. Oh. You're being so silly. Silly, come here. These reproductive hormones are also found to feed back upon the pituitary to inhibit inhibit further release of the same pituitary hormones which have stimulated their production. In this way, hormonal effects are exerted in the body in a fits and starts manner with a continuing state of imbalance between production and consumption of hormones. This fluctuating system of self-regulation is considered as normal by medical science today, but because of its inherent imbalance, aging and degeneration result in the body. However, as union of prana and apana in Manipura is induced, the behavior of the lower chakras and the instinctive functions they govern undergo modification. Production of the reproductive hormones diminishes to a steady baseline level, so that inhibition upon the pituitary secretion is released. The pituitary then begins to secrete its stimulating hormones without fits and starts. This is the physiological explanation of the flow of nectar from the Bindu Visarga becoming continuous and undisrupted. As a result, the stream of consciousness becomes one-pointed and continuous. This is the emergence of continuous nada in the brain. The gross Bindu in the Isabel, don't touch that, baby. The gross. You think you're so funny. I lost my space. The gross. As a result, the stream of consciousness becomes one-pointed and continuous. This is the emergence of continuous nada in the brain. The gross bindu in the reproductive secretions has been withdrawn and transmuted into nada, the blissful eternal seed sound emanating within the brain. Bindu has become nada, control of the sexual impulses has been attained, consciousness has been liberated into new realms of experience, and simultaneously the dependent glands and organs of the body are preserved. The Sarada Tilaka states, Mahabindu, the great Bindu, i.e. Brahman, divides itself into three. One division is predominated by Shiva, consciousness, the other by Shakti, energy, and the merging of the two is nada, transcendental sound vibration. The original Mahabindu in the cosmic realm is the primal source of pure consciousness. with energy in a passive state. On the differentiation of the supreme Bindu nada or unmanifest sound bursts forth. The Bindu Visarga is the highest manifestation of consciousness in the individual. It is the source of creation. By performing Mulabanda and thereby controlling the release of the sex hormones and the sex impulses, a constant flow of nectar is induced from the Bindu Visarga. This is experienced as transcendental sound. By controlling Bindu Visarga, you are controlling creation within the microcosms. So I actually just listened to a lecture the other night that was in the tradition of Bhakti, and they had this really beautiful, they were just speaking in such a beautiful way I wanted to share with you guys. So they were saying that like Vishnu shows up in 3 different forms or 3 different bindus, and it sounds exactly like what this tradition is saying, only like in a more poetic way. So they say that like Vishnu is existing in Krishna Loka, you know, playing out the divine Leela, or the divine play of like living a life, and it's like perpetually going on, you know, with all the girls loving him, his gopis and his parents and his friends are playing it out. So that's like one level. And then the second level is the universe is full of water, is what they say. And Vishnu lays down in the water, and out of every pore of his being secretes universes. So with every exhale, he secretes universes, and with every inhale, they dissolve back into him. And out of his navel, which this is grows a lotus flower, which Brahma is born from. And Brahma is the architect of all those different universes. And that's the second. So the first form is like individual. The second form is as this like the reason why there's that second form is because people can't necessarily, like, they're not addicted or attracted to that idea that there's a personified form of universal energy, right? They are attracted to the material forms. So he lays down in the ocean of the material universe and just starts creating more universes, like more material universes for people to enjoy. And then the third form is seated in the heart of each person as like para atman, as universal consciousness. So it manifests in 3 different ways. And it just, so the second way makes me think of, like, you know, they found, it was maybe like 15 years ago, they found, they had a theory that the universe wasn't just expanding, it was expanding and contracting. And they talk about time being, you know, we were talking about time a bit the other day, and the idea that one breath of Vishnu is like millions of years for us. So with one exhale, the universe is created, and then with one inhale, the universe is dissolved. And that idea of Shiva is the dissolving. So it's like from the, it's just a like poetic way of putting these like really big ideas. This idea that from the, I can't think, kid. So what was he saying up here, or she saying? So she's saying this like connection of the creation and the consciousness. It's like that laying down in the water. There's a creation from the consciousness, right? Like if Vishnu represents the conscious form, then the creative aspect or Prakriti is like Brahma, like the architect of all the beings on the planets and all of the different universes and the sort of mathematics of each universe. I thought it was kind of like an interesting way of thinking of it. It's like very beautiful. Out of his pores come the universes. And the seed sound is that underlying, it's that underlying creative force, right? So that's just another way of thinking of it. I don't know if that helps any. So we are a microcosm of the macrocosm, I guess is why I brought that up. I lost my train of thought with So prana and apana coming into union creates more manifestations, right? And maybe it goes backwards and it creates less manifestations. This idea that it's linked to the ovum and the sperm is kind of cool too, because we are like little creators ourselves as we create life for another person, or we bring down the circumstances that another soul can show up in the material. I think that's pretty special. So anyway, I'm going to stop reading because I'm watching the time diagram. Any thoughts, any comments?
Not related to this, but for yesterday, and I think she mentioned it again in this one, this idea of Kundalini Mudra, and I looked it up on Wikipedia.
Oh, why don't you show your screen? I'll take.
That's what I was reading right before I joined. I didn't know if it was going to come up again. She says it's not Wikipedia says it's not practiced as much now, but it's a practice in Hatha Yoga which requires the yogin to preserve his semen either by learning not to release it, or if released, by drawing it up through his urethra from the vagina of a woman devoted to the practice of yoga. So they go on to, like, there's a bit of opinion in here about it. Some people calling it obscene, obscure, repugnant. And then Wikipedia says this mudra is rarely practiced in modern times. So if you wanted to read more about it, it's here on, I'm sure you can find other articles too, but I thought that, because I think when I Googled it yesterday quickly, it looked like the person was performing it in like a boat pose. And I'm like, is that the mudra? But no, it's, and wait, there was something else that I quickly read. That I thought was interesting here. It says Kundalini Mudra differs from other mudras in that it does not consist of sealing in a vital fluid physically, but involves its recovery. The mudra requires the yogin to preserve his semen either by learning not to release it, or if released, well, this is what I just read. And then it says it's described in this Yoga Hatha Pradipika. So I thought.
That's a tantric thing.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense.
Yeah, Hatha Yoga is based off of Tantra, only sort of abbreviated. Thank you for looking that up.
So I should have mentioned that at the start because I felt like it tied together with this reading, and she did mention it again.
Last night after class, one of the students who was online was texting me a very funny question. She's like, Mulabanda is when I squeeze my vagina up? And I was like, yeah, pretty much. And she's like, well, you mean like when I am stopping peeing? You know, she's from another country. And I was like, yep, that's pretty much it, cracking me up. And she's like, but it is also when I am pooping, I need to stop the pooping. And I always, and like, I don't know, I was taught that, like, yeah, I think that's it. But now this is saying that's Ashwini Mudra and it's not anything to do with that. Like, I never teach men to do that. But for women, I'm always like, oh, all three of the things have to pull up. But yeah, so now I'm going to teach it differently.
Yeah.
You know, it's interesting you brought that up because I'm listening to that and I'm thinking when I do Mulabanda, usually it's, you know, it's all of them, you know, like you said, all three. And I'm reading it and thinking, oh, all wrong again. Okay. And then I was sitting there and practicing doing like your student said, squeezing the vagina and not automatically pulling in the anal region as well. And I thought, oh yeah, well, you can do that. Okay. But I didn't know. And the other way felt just fine too,
Yeah. That's funny.
Live
Yeah.
and learn.
Cracking me up. That's yeah. So I have to text her now, maybe a PDF copy of this. And
Yeah, how timely is that? It's interesting how in yoga, even with different teachers from different studios, sometimes the same concept will pop up in 1 week. To me, one of my teachers calls it a yogi coincidence. And it is.
that's what we're meant to all hear at that moment, I guess. We're all supposed to be talking about our anus and vagina this week.
All right. Good talk. Good talk.
I like practicing Mulabanda because it first you have to be so present. Like you can't be thinking about anything else except doing it.
Yeah.
And it just reminds us like how much is going on in our body and how we can get very specific. Like just like figuring out where down there without really being able to point or like show somebody what you're doing, because you have to feel it internally. It's like it's a fun practice to practice for me, because it's like
That's right. It really does make you focus internally. You really do have to think about it when
and
you
like
first.
while you're doing that, but like keep your face and shoulders, like don't tense up here, but tense down there. But when you do figure out where it is, like you get like there's strength down there and in your Uddiyana Bandha, and like you become so strong when you practice that it's like probably so healthy to strengthen those muscles. Just like my posture is better from just practicing. I might not be perfecting it, but even just practicing playing with those muscles is making me stronger.
So tomorrow morning I have a lesson with another teacher, and I told her that we were, what we were, that we're reading this, et cetera, et cetera. And I asked her if she'd be willing to go through stuff that seemed interesting to me, et cetera, et cetera. And she had recommended reading, HYP before. So she really likes this too. So tomorrow I asked her if we would go through Uddiyana Bandha again, because it's such an interesting thing. And I want to make sure that if I do it, I'm doing it correctly on the first level. I don't want to, I'm not pushing it, but on the first level. And so I guess we'll do that for a couple of weeks, but then I want to go back to Mulabanda and make sure all of that is hanging out the right way.
Well, Amanda,
what's her name? Tina?
No, this is a woman named Mary Claire Chiafalo. Have you met her?
Friends with her on Facebook.
Yeah. She was one of my very first yoga teachers.
She's good?
Yeah, many years ago. And because she used to teach a Sunday class at Blue Firmament, I believe. And when I broke my foot, and then I went to her classes in Malvern, and then at one point I broke my foot or something like an ankle. Who knows? Who remembers? and I asked her if she could do a couple of private things, since I really couldn't do the class-based stuff very well. And she did, and I just never stopped. So I go once a week to her.
Oh, that's nice.
It is. It's fabulous because it's made such a difference in how I practice, because in class you get a lot of good input, but there's nothing like having somebody watching you with laser eyes saying, like what you just said, Pam, Sue, it is your abdomen that's doing the work, not your face, not your neck, not your shoulders. So relax, that kind of thing. And they spot it because they're staring at you.
Yeah.
So I've been doing it virtually through the pandemic. So I guess we're going to be working on the bandhas because I asked her to, and she will. So
that's nice.
It's really good. And I told you before, Pam, that for me, reading this stuff is great, and I'm very head based. But the way that I really get it is to sit down try to do some version of it if it's at all approachable for me. If it's not, then it's sort of like, well, that was good to read. Let's go on.
Yeah. No, I think I get it. I'm the same way.
Yeah.
Should we do some breath work and meditate?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And then Amanda, have a good vacation. If you need anything, we're here.
Thank you, sweetie.
Yeah, I hope you don't touch base hardly at all. I hope you can drift away a little.
I'm gonna try.
Yeah.
What was she saying?
She was having her boobies and she was going,
Oh, yeah.
She's very cute.
That'll be really fun to spend.
Yeah, just to be present. I really need to just be present with one thing. It's just been too much.
And what better thing to be present with?
Yeah, for sure. All right. So do you want to lead, Pam, or you want me to lead?
You can lead. I don't mind leading. It's up to you.
All right. So take your right thumb to your right nostril and your ring finger to your left nostril, and you can inhale through the left side. Hold off both and then exhale through the other side. Inhaling, closing off both, and exhaling. 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 Inhaling, closing off both, retain the breath, hold the root, the belly, close the chin, turn the eyes up, release the chin, the belly, the root, and exhale. Inhale, closing off both, retain the breath, root, belly, chin, eyes. And release the chin, belly, root, and exhale. Inhale, closing off both, retain. Exhale. Inhale. 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 Retain. Exhale. And finish out your left side. And we'll do some bumblebee. You can take your thumbs into your ears, close off your eyes, inhale deeply, and exhale. When you're done, place your hands on your knees. If there are any final pranayamas you want to take, you can. And then move into your meditation. Placing the hands in prayer, bowing the head. Namaste. All right, ladies, have a great week. Love you both. I'll see ya soon.
Yes. Bye. Have a good day.
Hope your week accomplishes what